And let him not shut his eyes to the faults of offenders, but, since he has the authority, let him cut out those faults by the roots as soon as they begin to appear. Remembering the fate of Heli,
Talk to me, brother.
priest of Silence, the well-disposed and those of good
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery.
Verbal admonition the first and second time. But bold, hard, proud, and disobedient characters.
Who's in charge of things around here?
Very beginning of
Abbot Peter is the administrator of the monastery, but you won't see him. He's always travelling, and on top of that, he's old and infirm. Perhaps the good Lord will bless him with many more years of life.
And what happens when the old abbot dies?
Then we elect a new one.
The rule of Saint Benedict.
Are there any candidates to be the new abbot?
Yes, there are. Brothers John and Nevelus. Cursed elections. Since the brothers began talking about them, there's only been strife in the monastery. On one side are brothers who'd like to see John as abbot, on the other those who support Nevelus. And they seem to be capable of fighting about it forever.
To lead us at times to refrain even from good speech. So much the more.
I thought politics weren't part of the monastic way of life.
You're right. But we know nothing besides the monastery, and the abbot's decisions can influence our entire life. Some of the brothers take it very personally.
Even though it be for good, holy, edifying conversation. For it is written, in much
I'd like to know about
speaking, you will
Nevelus.
not escape sin.
Nevelus manages the monastery's property. He doesn't have the most experience, but his drive and heart are pure, his faith firm, and his ideas rational. Although perhaps he's too keen to change our routines here, which many brothers don't like.
Tell me about John.
John is a Circator, and the oldest brother here. It would be only natural if he took the crozier from Peter. He has experience, merit, and composure. He'd lead the monastery wisely.
And for such conversation we do not permit a disciple to open his mouth.
Who would you like to be the new abbot?
Brother Nevelus, there are many things wrong here, and John would leave them as they are.
I said, I will guard my ways, that I may not sin with my tongue.
Are there ever any disagreements between the brothers?
Unfortunately, yes. The biggest quarrels right now are about the election of the new abbot. They can already see poor Peter in his grave.
Times to refrain even from good speech.
Tell me something about electing the abbot.
The old abbot is practically on his deathbed. There are two candidates. Half the monastery wants John, the other half Nevelus, and there's no chance they'll come to an agreement. But you've probably already noticed the atmosphere around here.
Holy, edifying conversation. For it is written, in much speaking you will not escape sin. And in another place, death and life are in the power of the tongue. For speaking and teaching belong to the master. The disciple's part is to be silent and to listen. For that reason, if anything has to be asked of the superior, it should be asked with all the humility and submission inspired by reverence. But as for coarse jests and idle words, or words that move to laughter, these we condemn everywhere with a perpetual ban. And for such conversation we do not permit a disciple to open his mouth.
Greetings, brother. I'm Gregor, and I'm new here.
Greetings to you, brother. I'm Yodok, the oldest of the novices. I hope you'll like it here in the monastery and that you won't get into trouble.
Trouble?
You're young, perhaps intemperate. You might easily stray from the rules of the order. I suggest you get to know the older monks. You never know when it might come in handy.
I'm interested in the other novices. What can you tell me about Siskin?
Oh, he's always got a smile on the new friend. But I reckon he don't belong in the monastery. He spends more time dreaming of the world outside than tending to his duties. I'm surprised he hasn't been thrown out already. If it was up to me, he'd be out on his ear right away.
Sounds like you don't have much time for him.
I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. Believe me, Gregor, he's hiding something from us. In fact, now I come to think of it, I haven't seen him at morning prayers for a while.
Do you know anything about Antonius?
Only that he came to the monastery voluntarily, because he didn't want to work in his father's shop. Antonius is all right. You can rely on him. He won't betray your confidence. He's always happy to help, which is more than can be said for the other brothers.
Can you tell me something about yourself?
I would if there was anything noteworthy to say. But I'm just the ordinary son of a landowner, now a monk. There's nothing in my past, present, or future that anyone could find interesting.
Why did you join the monastery?
Because it was better than living in poverty. As the youngest son, I inherit my father's estate, but he was kind enough to sell off some cattle and send me here. And you know what? I'm glad to be here. It's better than mucking out manure.
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery. Well, that's all. Thank you for your time, brother.
Ah, Gregor, talk to me.
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery. Are there ever any disagreements between the brothers?
Unfortunately, yes. The biggest quarrels right now are about the election of the new abbot. They can already see poor Peter in his grave.
Tell me something about electing the abbot.
The old abbot is practically on his deathbed. There are two candidates.
Peace be with you, brother.
What is it, brother?
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery. Well, that's all. Thank you for your time, brother.
Putting things in order. But if I don't know exactly what's wrong, then my promises are just empty slogans.
Very good then. I'll find out what I can.
Thank you, brother.
What do you want me to find out?
I'd be interested to hear about any iniquity in the monastery. I need to prepare myself for what I'll be facing. Praise be to Christ, brother.
Is there any way I could help you get elected? Somehow tip the scales in your favour?
What would you like to do? Climb up?
Not exactly.
John is... But there is...
That doesn't sound...
Pity. What troubles you?
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery. Who would you like to be the new abbot?
Oh, Brother John, obviously. No one's interested in Nevelis and his new ideas.
These novices, I'd pull those idlers by the ears.
What have they done to you this time, brother?
They're shirking their responsibilities, leaving us, their superiors, to chase around after them, finishing what they don't.
Did you have to finish someone's weeding in the garden again?
Yet again. I've had enough of it.
What do you desire, Brother Gregor?
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery.
Stop, Gregor!
Gloria in excelsis Deo, et in terra pax hominibus bone.
Go
What do you
away.
want, brother? Not you should.
Brother? You were somewhere you shouldn't have been. Don't you know your place? Don't you know where you're permitted to enter and where your presence is forbidden?
Very well, brother. I accept my punishment.
Now, show me what you have on you. I must confiscate anything that is not allowed in the monastery. What troubles you?
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery.
Not now, brother. After Mass. Not now, brother. After Mass.